Breaking news! Footage just leaked of a newly arrived immigrant at the Hull House, circa 1910. Let's play the clip, Jerry!
I have just arrived in this new strange world. I bring 2 kids with me. Husband die in home country. Hull House give food, sleep, warmth, and learn English. Jane gives me second chance. I am very grateful. She give my kid out of factory. We have a chance for American dream.
All around me are familiar faces, worn out places.
Up next, a behind-the-scenes look at the whole operation of the Hull House. Let's hear it from an employee herself. This interview found from over 100 years ago. Let's play it.
What is the philosophy of the Hull House?
As a worker at the Hull House, we focus on Christian morality and idealism. We fight for conditions better than our present. Hull House gives women like me, with a college education, an opportunity for meaningful work. In an environment of sisterhood, we focus on cooperation, not competition. Jane Addams?
So Jane, tell me about your experience and your work.
Well, here at the Hull House, we gather cold, hard facts to reveal the truth of our society. All injustice must be fought with reason and empathy. Women of democracy, unite! We must continue to assess the root of these problems from which these conditions thrive. The Hull House is the great mother breast of our common humanity.
Well said.
You've made the right decision. Vote Teddy Roosevelt.
Breaking news! Jane Addams has been marked as a threat to the U.S. security because of her anti-nationalist, anti-World War I views. Here with Channel 11 News, we cover the inside scoop of Jane Addams' strenuous life. Back to the studio with Babs Hannon. She has a special guest.
Hi, I'm Babs Hannon, here for Channel 11 News. Tonight we have a special guest, Miss Deborah Wong from Sarah Lawrence University. She is an expert in Miss Jane Addams. Welcome, Deborah.
Thank you, Babs.
Now, Miss Wong, tell us, what was Jane Addams' stance on war and imperialism?
Well, she was in a number of anti-war and anti-imperialist groups. She was a member of the Anti-Imperialist League, which opposed the annexation of the Philippines and the Spanish-American War. She was also a member of the Women's Peace Party, which used public demonstrations to take active protest against the war, World War I. This later joined with other groups from Europe to create the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, which worked to create permanent peace after the war.
Thank you, Miss Wong. Now tell us, what did she do to help children with legal status and rights?
Well, she helped impoverished children in cities get protection legally so that small petty crimes wouldn't receive as much punishment.
Was there a foundation she established for this?
Yes, it was called the Juvenile Protection Association, which provided lawyers and advocators for these children.
And Miss Wong, tell us, what was Jane Addams' position on racial equality in America?
Well, she was a supporter of the Niagara Movement, which involved W.E.B. Du Bois, a major civil rights leader. This laid the foundation for the NAACP.
And tell us, what was the mission of the NAACP?
Founded in 1910, this organization worked to find political, social, and economic equality for Black people.
Wonderful, thank you. And Deborah, tell us, what was one of her major legacies?
Well, she was best known for her creation of the Hull House. This was a settlement house movement in which idealism and practicality were meant to help immigrant women and families that had moved into urban cities move on from old ways and learn new ways to raise their children, get education, and have more opportunities.
So essentially Americanize them.
Essentially, yes.
Did they have any creative forms of expression at the Hull House?
Of course they did. Jane Addams was very into fostering artistic expression and self-discovery. So she created a theater in which many immigrants were allowed to perform their plays of their traditional cultures and express themselves, which later turned into a precursor to the Chicago theaters.
Wow, that's something I never knew. Thank you, Deborah.
Yeah.
Deborah, what other movements did Jane support?
Well, Jane helped found the American Civil Liberties Union and also supported women's suffrage because she thought that women needed the right to vote to be able to keep that moral code within their communities and their families.
And tell us, what was the American Civil Liberties Union all about?
Well, they really just wanted to protect the basic given human rights that this country has guaranteed to protect and hadn't.
Wow, what a remarkable woman she was.
Truly.
Tell us, how did the Hull House affect its workers?
Well, many of its workers became well-known activists as a result of what they saw and experienced and the moral code that they had to learn. For example, Florence Kelley, Alice Hamilton, Julia Lathrop, Ellen Gates Starr, Sophonisba Breckinridge, and Grace and Edith Abbott.
So, it must have been a really transformative experience, wouldn't you say?
Truly.
Wow. So, what kind of recognition did Jane Addams receive for her work?
Well, she was the first woman in the United States to receive the Nobel Peace Prize and the second in the world overall.
Wow, that's pretty significant. Miss Wong, what were Jane Addams' early years like?
Well, she studied at Rockford, where she was the first person to graduate with a degree, thus raising the college to collegiate status.
And did she study within a traditional women's sphere of education?
Well, no. In fact, she actually went outside of that domestic sphere and studied the classical, liberal arts and sciences, where traditionally she would have studied homemaking and housekeeping and child-rearing. This was generally more of a man's education, but she revolutionized this.
So she was really an independent thinker.
Truly.
And did she attend any other schools?
Well, in fact, she did. She was the first woman to graduate from Yale.
Thank you, Miss Addams. Wow. Thank you, Deborah Wong. It has been a pleasure. Any last comments before we sign off the air?
Well, I have definitely a lot more to say about this amazing woman.
Thank you. For Channel 11 News, this has been Babs Hannon. Up next, is your refrigerator trying to kill you? Channel 11 News, Babs Hannon, back again. We had a very important call from Miss Deborah Wong. She said after she left the studio, she remembered some pertinent facts she forgot to share on the air. We're waiting for her to call in right now. Please stand by.
Oh, we're recording already. Hi, it's Deborah Wong again. I'm just back to inform you of the really important things that Jane Addams did in her time. First being sheltering domestic violence victims, which was incredibly rare for her time. She provided nutritious food at the Hull House, public baths, assimilation into American culture for immigrants, child daycare, child education, adult education, the arts, research and studying, and later influenced state legislation on child labor laws, occupational health and safety, provisions for...
Dad, dinner's ready!
All right, honey, 1 minute.
I make sweet potatoes!
Okay, honey. And lastly, workers' compensation, which later translated to the federal level when people began to realize that this was necessary across the board.
Dad, it's getting cold!
Thank you. Bye.
Jane Addams revolutionized the role a woman could play in a reform movement in the United States of America. Jane Addams and the Hull House kept hundreds of marginalized people from filth, famine, and factories. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Jane. The women of the present salute you.
Who won the world, girls? 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 Who won this mother? Who won this mother? Who won this mother?
Okay.